Hello, I'm Mike Osborne-Town, and I'm standing on behalf of the Labour Party in the Stonefield and Christchurch by-election for the Stone Town Council on May the 6th. So why am I standing? Well, it's not because of any long-standing ambition to be a councillor. I've lived in the ward for the last 25 years and in Stone for even longer, and I like it here. I like the people, the pubs, the parks, the shops, and I want to make sure that despite the virus, we can make it a better place for everyone. Children, young people, families, everyone. I want it to be a prosperous, vibrant and attractive place, but also a place that looks after its vulnerable. People with disabilities, people who are only just managing, people who are homeless and people in care homes. I'm also standing because I feel really strongly about the climate emergency. I don't know what the council is doing to make Stone a more sustainable place. What is it doing? Do you know? And yet it's the most important issue facing us. We need to reduce pollution, minimise the use of plastics, promote biodiversity, green spaces and wildlife, and get everyone, especially young people in schools, involved and active. Stone is a great place to live. Look at Stonefield Park and Westbridge Parks, the new gym and swimming pool, the Crown Wharf, the library, the station, the Common Plot, Downsbanks and the High Street, all fantastic resources. We need to look after them and invest in them. We all need to use them. Town councils are nothing to do with national politics. Do you realise that if elected, I would be the only councillor, the only one, who was not in the Independent Party? I would work with them, but I would also challenge them, hold them to account and keep them honest. If you think a one-party town council isn't healthy and agree with my values, vote for me, Mike Osborne-Town, on May the 6th.
Question number 1. Although on the whole crime levels in Stone are low, the recent spate of criminality has caused worry for residents and business owners. What will you do in your capacity of councillor to address this feeling?
Yeah, crime levels are relatively low in Stone, but people are worried about the recent events. I'd like to see a community police support officer appointed who was dedicated to Stone, maybe cycling the streets and with a mobile phone number that was available to all. I know the council has only a small budget, but we have to prioritise. Is a police presence more important than a litter picker? Could we share one with another community? This is something that needs to be addressed by the new Police and Crime Commissioner, and I think it's the Town Councillor's job to argue the case.
Question number 2. With the 2021 and 22 budget set for the Stone Town Council, where will funding come from to bring your manifesto pledges to life?
Actually, my manifesto pledges aren't really based on particular funding. I mean, the Town Council budget, it can't fund much. Most of the budget goes to borough councils and county councils and obviously the government. The role of a town councillor is to know who to speak to in the borough and county councils, but to be relentless in persuading them to fund what we think is important. The CPSO mentioned in my previous answer is an example. We need to represent our constituents' views to the Police and Crime Commissioner and the Police Authority to get what we want. It's up to us to lobby people, to persuade people, to argue for our constituents to try to get them to do the funding.
Question number 3. The Stonefield and Christchurch ward encompasses a few core business areas, the High Street, Whitebridge Estate and Mount Road Estate. There's a lot of focus on the High Street, but what would you do to support these other areas that are often forgotten about?
Yeah, you're right there, John, and I must admit, I'd forgotten about them. It's a question I've not really thought about. Companies on local business parks do bring in business rates and they bring in jobs to Stone. All I can say is that the town council needs to be sure that it's talking to such businesses. It needs to represent their views at area business partnership meetings. It's got to have a constant dialogue with them because they are part of the funding of the town council and the local area. They're part of our community, they're part of our jobs, and they're part of our prosperity.
Question number 4. Do you support the Stone Neighbourhood Plan that is also going to referendum on the 6th of May? And how do you see it impacting the ward?
Yeah, I do. I have read it and I've just sent my postal vote in saying yes in the referendum. I mean, it's a good document in that it tells, if I were buying a house in Stone, I think I'd read that document because it tells you so much about the history of the place. But one of the most important themes in it is the protection of green spaces. We need to do this both to retain the sense of space and the sense of countryside, because Stone is a rural small town. And we also need to do it to conserve the floodplain that would be so important if climate change led to more flooding, as well as to protect and encourage wildlife. There's not a lot about housing in there, and I wouldn't want to see a lot more housing in Stone because we haven't got the capacity to cope with it. But we don't want to be people who say, no, you can't come into Stone. Got to make the best use we can of the resources we've got, but not to spoil it.
Question number 5. Stonefield has very narrow streets lined with terraced housing.
Yeah.
Parking is an issue for homeowners, workers, parents, rail users and visitors to the town. What would you like to see from the County Council's on-street parking strategy to accommodate vehicles in the ward, especially as we move to electric and hydrogen vehicles?
Yeah, I live in one of those very narrow streets. I live in a mid-terraced house in the ward, and I've just bought an electric car. Before I bought it, I tried to persuade the county and borough councils to find a way to allow me to bring my charging cable up from my cellar through a channel in the footpath in the street so I could connect it to my car when I needed to charge it. The borough council were helpful, but the county council quashed it without discussion, and I've had to put a charger in the back garden, accessed from the back alley. If we're going to have more electric vehicles, councils are going to have to be more open-minded and work with residents to find creative solutions, not just say no. There aren't easy answers, but there are answers, and our ward is full of terraced houses.
Question number 6. With the potential for more working from home and a focus on greener living, what schemes would you champion to reduce the reliance on cars?
Yeah, it's another difficult one, especially with what we've just been through, and more people are using more cars again now. But there are already some electric car sharing schemes in some cities. And that's the only thing I can really think, or one of the only things I can think of that might work. We need to encourage them here in Stone, perhaps in our car parks. And I know the Borough Council are putting some chargers in car parks where we could have electric sharing cars in our car parks, or maybe at the station, or maybe at the supermarket. I'm also a big fan of the railway station. We need to use trains to the maximum, both to replace car journeys and in fact to replace short-haul flights, as long as we can make them safe to use. And I think that's one of the issues, getting people confidence back to go on trains. But our station is a major advantage for Stone. And when we get things back to normal, we've got to make sure it's used as much as possible.
Question number 7. Candidates talk about wanting to protect green spaces and also improve playing recreation facilities. Was it right for Stafford Borough Council to sell off recreation space at Westbridge Park and Tilling Drive to fund the chronic underinvestment in Stone's play and recreation spaces?
Yeah, it's a dilemma, this one, for a council, but I mean, bluntly, I would say no, I don't think it was right for them to do that. I think it's wrong that the only way we can fund improvements is to flog off green spaces. But we do need to provide more and better recreational facilities for children and young people, not just play facilities, but youth facilities. What we have to do is to persuade national government that these things are important enough to fund them through the taxpayer, through the Exchequer. I mean, honestly, I would be happy to pay more tax for better amenities, as they do in Scandinavia. But we shouldn't be flogging off, if you like, our family jewels. Question
number 8 is, what are your views on climate change and global warming and protecting all areas of Stone from possible future flooding?
Yeah, it is the most important question facing us, even though you may think a puny town council can do very little about it. I mean, I think the climate emergency is the biggest problem facing us. It's already making areas of the world uninhabitable, leading to famine, poverty, migration and refugees, as well as reducing biodiversity. Everything we build, buy, use, every decision we take, even at town council level, should reduce pollution and protect wildlife. It's not flood defences we need, it's preventing climate change that causes flooding. In fact, and this may seem a little bit optimistic and idealistic, but my greatest home lies with young people. I do a lot of work with schools, and young people are real idealists, and it's their future, and they're up for the fight for a more sustainable world. We need to listen to them, we need to support them rather than dismissing them. It's their future.
Question number 9. No councillor is an island. Change involves having fellow councillors on board with your ideas. How would you bring your fellow councillors along with your ideas, as the town council represents all aspects of Stone life?
Yeah, I mean, I think you heard me say that if I were elected, I would be the only person who wasn't in the independent party that runs Stone Town Council at the moment. And I would want to hold them to account. I would want to make sure what they were doing was what they say they were doing. But I do believe, actually, the town council does a pretty good job. And I would work with them. I'm a person who works in teams. I'm collegiate. Yeah, I believe the only way we make things work is to work together. I put my time and my back into it. I see town councillors on Stone High Street and at the food markets and at the festivals and things. And I'd be the person who would do that. So, we're talking about you've got 15, 16 individuals here who've got to work together, whichever party they're in. So it would be persuading, it would be listening, it would be collegiate, it would be joint decision making, but it would also be challenging. And I am prepared to speak up and be unpopular if I don't think they're doing the right thing.
Question number 10. Stonefield Park is an award-winning park within the borough. Unfortunately, other parks and recreation spaces haven't seen the same level of investment and maintenance. Developer-funded parks on some estates have seemingly been left unupgraded for 20 plus years, leaving children with outdated and uninspiring play options. What will you do to ensure that areas across our town get the resources they require?
Yeah, I mean, that's one good thing about the neighbourhood plan. It does identify all those green spaces, and quite often those spaces are hidden on estates and things. It isn't easy to say where funding would come from. I do believe that the funding has to come from a borough council or county council, or even persuading our MP that there should be more funding for spaces for young people and for children. We're not just talking about one park, we talk about lots of small play areas that mean a lot to the people who live around them. And there isn't the funding that the town council has. So we've got to find a different way of doing it. And I do believe it's such a big thing because we talk about children's mental health, we talk about well-being. Well, those are things that are crucial to children's health and well-being. And it should be a national priority that we support places like that. And we make sure that everywhere that is close to where somebody lives has the right sort of amenities.
Question number 11. How would you sell moving to the Stonefield and Christchurch area to someone looking to move to Stone?
Oh, it's the nicest part of Stone for me. I have lived in another part of Stone, and I remember somebody saying that it was the most characterful area. I've lived in 3 houses in different parts of this ward, all older houses. And there is a sense of community. You mentioned Stonefield Park earlier. Well, Stonefield Park is its own centre, isn't it? We're very close to the high street. I mean, I think I should probably live for the rest of my life in the house where I live now, because I can go out of the house, I can come home from work, and I can walk down into Stone High Street, and I can have a drink, or I can go to a restaurant, or I can go into the park, or I can play tennis. And it's just such a central, perfect place to be. And actually, with different electronic communication, there are lots of nice communities that are online as well, which help you get to know people. So it's a great place to be and to live. There are great people who live here.
Question number 12. Litter and dog fouling is an issue across Stone. What do you see as solutions from Stone Town Council to tackle these problems? Should we have things like more dog poo bins, work with Stafford Borough Council on enforcement, or create campaigns around awareness of the impact of leaving litter and not picking up your dog poo?
Yeah. I mean, it is more about awareness. You've got to have the litter bins. I've been out on litter picks myself, and I see lots of other people who just go out, get a plastic bag. I've got 2 litter pickers in my cellar. When I worked in education, we did litter picks every single lunchtime. And it is about educating people, and I actually think it's about making people feel guilty if they drop litter, or if they let their dogs poo and they don't pick it up, or if they hang it on trees or whatever. It is about feeling that you are part of that community, and by dropping litter or leaving your dog poo there, you let people down, because to be honest, it's awful. It is awful when you see litter strewn areas And it's even worse when you're standing in dog poo. And I'm a big fan of animals, and I love dog lovers, and I think they're the salt of the earth. But they've got to make sure that everyone in the community does what they're supposed to do. It's been a fantastic achievement that we've got people picking up dog poo. Let's make sure everybody does it.
Question number 13. Did your campaign support stone-based businesses for things like leaflet printing, distribution, any marketing or advertising? If so, which ones did you support? And if not, why not?
Well, yes, it did. I mean, all of it's done through local businesses. Is it Pronto Print? That's at the end of the high street. That's just around the back of Highlands. I think
Panda
it is,
Press.
isn't it?
Panda Press.
Panda Press, sorry, yes. Yeah. Panda Press, that's what we use for all of the leaflets. We've done all of the leafleting through them. And everything has been done through either the local Facebook or through using Albos. There isn't anything that's gone outside as far as I know. I do believe that in everything we do. I said, it's a bit like use it or lose it, isn't it? It's the high street, anything you can do. If I can go down to Mountfords and get my everything I want, and there's no way I'm going to go to Homebase or other places like that. Really is important to support local businesses and to use the shops, use the pubs, and use all the facilities. And the same's true of Crown Wolf as well. Got to make a good job of using that and really make it the centre of Stone recreation.
Question number 14. During non-COVID times, the town council has a programme of events in and around the town. What's your favourite event, and what event would you like to see added to the calendar, and why?
Yeah, my favourite event is probably the monthly food markets, because it does really get the place buzzing. A little bit concerned sometimes that we're bringing people in from the outside, and I do wonder just how it affects the business on the high street. But largely, I think it's a good thing because so many people come into it. I think we've had music festivals, maybe in July, August, to have something that is purely recreational, not just for children, but for, if you like, the middle-aged or older generations, where you can have a drink on the high street, you can mix, you can mingle, you can talk to people you've not seen some time, and even with a plastic pint in your hand. I've never seen any trouble in any of those things, and I would like to bring those sorts of things back. Anything that's communal, anything that brings us together has to be a good thing, and I think it is something that the town council can do, and I'd support them wholeheartedly on that.
Question number 15. With mental and physical health taking a knock during the recent lockdowns, what would you like to see in the town to give these health issues a boost?
Yeah, I mean, I did say a little bit earlier about the importance for children and young people, and I suspect that they're the people who've been affected most by it. I mean, one of the problems is we don't have a proper youth club. There aren't really many places for young people to go. I think the schools do a brilliant job, and schools put on many more activities than people actually realise. And there are lots of good clubs around, sports clubs especially. I think people who are older, you can get to, I mean, I'm a member of Stone Tennis Club and a member of the golf club as well, so I can find things to do. I think the gym has been a fantastic place, and I think that's something else we've got to support. And we've got to make sure that young people can get to that. I think mental health is also about, one of the good things about the virus is that people do a lot more walking, got to look after our footpaths. And I think people are much more aware of nature and biodiversity, and we've got to build on that as well. So when everything gets back to normal, we've got to promote those things.
Question 16. With our high street moving to once again being fully open for business, what can Stone Town Council do to encourage residents and visitors back into the town this summer?
Yeah, I think one of the first things, and I hope the town council's doing it, I don't know that they are. I mean, I think people are going to be a little bit nervous. It's not as busy now as it used to be, but outdoor events over this summer are perfect. And I think the town council should allow and encourage businesses, whatever they are, especially the businesses that provide services, to use the outdoor space down the high street and outside the shops and the cafes and the pubs and whatever. I know you may say, well, this is a bit of a risk, especially if you've got people maybe drinking on the high street. But if you've got tables and chairs and people are socially distanced, then I think that will bring back that community feel. There's nothing like outdoor events. It's a little bit like being on the continent, isn't it? What we really like when we go abroad is actually sitting outside and having a drink or having a coffee or having a meal. And I think we could do that, even if we've got to be wrapped up in our park as while we're actually doing it. So, if you want a truly independent person who's lived in the ward for many years, I said lived in 3 different houses in the ward over the last 25 years, and is prepared to work for local residents, for local people, and for Stone as a whole. Someone who has inclusive values, and you know what my values are, I said them in my introduction, who's bothered about everybody, who will stick up for the vulnerable and represent everyone equally, even those people who may be on the margins of society. Someone who's not afraid to ask questions and challenge the council, and who will be a dog with a bone to get an answer. If asked individual questions, if asked to do something, I may not be able to make things happen. I may not even be able to get a solution, but I'll get an answer, and I'll get an answer in the end. If you want someone like that, then vote for me in the Town Council by-election on May the 6th. And can I just say one more thing? I do want to thank a little bit of Stone and John for doing this, because I don't know how many people will listen to it, but again, it is all part of this community ethos, and we're listening to each other, and we're sharing with each other, and we're communicating with each other. And that's what I'd like to do as a town councillor. Thank you.